Welcome, everybody, to Me Time. It's been a couple of weeks. Thanks for waiting it out with us. I'm really excited to be back and for you all to hear this episode. This was such a beautiful conversation. I love this woman. Her name is Mory Fontanez. She has a book right now called Higher Self, Reclaiming the Power of Your Intuition. It's an incredible book. I think it's very important right now, and I just really loved talking to her, and I am going to talk to her more. But please enjoy this episode. She has so many beautiful things to say. I want to talk to you about a lot of things, but we'll start with, you have a book out right now called Higher Self.
Yeah.
All about reconnecting, right, with our intuition.
Yes.
Which weirdly, I'm like, I don't know. When things just happen in your life and people recommend things, people say things. So this book, before I even knew I was interviewing you, this book was recommended to me.
I keep hearing that this week.
Really?
Yes. You're the third interviewer to tell me that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've been in this space for a bit of just, what are these things that kind of block me from trusting myself, with these things that I'm doubting, and I'm exploring different avenues of exploring that, from reading to therapy to I just read this book called The Tell. Have you read
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Plant therapy or plant medicine, all of that. Just because I feel like I'm in that seeking. I feel like so many people, I don't know if it's the state of the world. I don't know there's something right now where I think a lot of people are having this moment of, I want to feel. It used to be all about, maybe it's just my age and where I am, but it used to be all about the exterior and the output and let me see if I can grab from out here what I might need to feel better about myself or whatever. And I feel like there is a little bit of a movement right now of people being like, I want to feel better in here, and I want to know why I either got away from these things that I know are true to who I am and how they affect my life. Why am I seem to be blocked in certain areas or ways of thinking? Anyway, so having this conversation with people, this book had been recommended to me, and then I was like, oh my God, I get to interview her.
Awesome.
And we get to talk about this too. So, but let's start. I want to go back with you. Yeah. When and how and what made you even start, we'll get to what inspired the book, but you start exploring this loss of connection maybe to our intuition and finding it again? And what was that pivotal moment or moment of impact, I like to call it sometimes on here, or what was it?
Yeah.
If you're okay to talk about it. Yeah.
Of course. And it really is, I think, one of the climax parts of the book, because I tell the story of my own life in parallel to giving the method to people, because I really want everyone to know I never ask you to do anything I haven't done myself.
Yeah.
And so every time I've suffered in my life, I am now realizing it's been because I was meant to walk the path first, so that I can show others how to do it and still hold on to your dignity and hold on to your belief in yourself and how to further dive into your inner wisdom in those moments of chaos. And so for me, I did crisis management for 15 years. What did that mean? It meant that if a brand or a CEO or a public personality got themselves into a public situation that was harmful for them, I worked in an agency where I would go in with my team and we'd help write the messages to make people trust you again. And I did that because my own life was a story of crisis after crisis. I was born to Iranian immigrants that had fled the revolution quite by accident. My sister's 9.5 years older than me, if that tells you anything. So the amount of strain that they were under, the amount of strain I came into this world under. My mom then took me back to Iran when I was 6 months old to meet her family. We got stuck there because the Iran-Iraq war broke out. So until I was about 1.5, we were in a war zone. Really, and this is the thing to know, your consciousness is registering things at all ages. It doesn't matter if you remember anything or not. But at that early development stage, really taking in panic and anxiety as just a normal status quo of life.
Right.
And then coming back and my parents ending up getting divorced and being raised by a single mother who's miles away from her family, and then absorbing that from her. For me, crisis and chaos was very normal. And actually, one of the healing journeys I've been on is not finding myself bored when things are okay. That's what drew me to the
Oh,
relationships I was in. That's what
yeah.
drew me to certain friendships and
Yeah.
clearly my career. But what happened is it started to unwind when, first of all, I, in my first marriage, at 8 months pregnant with my second child, was just on the kitchen floor sobbing because we'd had the same fight again. And
Mhm.
my ex-husband walked in after we had been fighting, and I was crying on the kitchen floor, and he looked at me just like with disgust in his face and just walked away. And I
I have
heard
chills.
this voice.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
heard this voice, and it was like, it's not going to be like this forever. You're going to change this. There's more than this. You know it. And the first thing I can tell you about that voice is it was so familiar. There was not a single part of me that was like, who is that? That sounds like an external voice. It was like, oh no, you've been with me my whole life.
Mhm.
And I started to get curious about that voice. And as I got curious about this voice or this thought, it's not actually a voice I can hear, I started to realize, oh, that's how I do crisis management for others so well. It's this voice. What
So
is,
it's your own intuition
yeah,
that can articulate, interpret, whatever that is, other people's
yes.
crises as well. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
but the
Okay.
thing that I found,
Sorry.
and
I
I
just
tell people all the time, curiosity is everything.
yeah.
The more you ask questions, the more the world opens itself up to you. So
Hmm.
instead of resist the voice for the first time, because I was in such a pit of despair that I
Hmm.
couldn't ignore her anymore, instead of resist, I started to just ask, like, well, what is this voice? Why is it so familiar? Why does it show up at work so much? And then I started getting curious about these people we were helping. Like, wait a minute, if I can see the answer so clearly, do they have the same ability to do that? Oh,
Mm.
okay. Yes, but what covers it up? Their fear, their anxiety. The reason they can't hear it or see it so clearly is not because I've got some gift they don't have. It's that they are in the crisis moment,
Hmm.
just like I was in that marriage for so long. And the fear voice, the limited self, the contracted self is
Hmm.
so trying to protect you that it's louder. And as I started to explore this theory, I stayed in my job, but just started asking questions, started asking teams like, did you have a hunch? Yeah, we knew. Why didn't you say anything? Well, who's going to believe me, right? Oh, interesting. We don't even trust our own inner wisdom. Why is that?
Wow.
And I went down this road of understanding that we have been conditioned not to trust ourselves
Yeah.
for centuries because it is easier for systems that want control and
Mm.
power and uniformity to convince you that your wisdom is external. And we buy
Mm.
into it. And our parents buy into it, and our grandparents bought into it. And so, this lesson of vigilance, of intelligence, of accumulating wealth as a way of being valuable. These things have been passed on to us. I say in the book, it's like our ancestors wrapped them like they were little gifts, their limiting
Mm.
beliefs, and they
Hmm.
handed them down as a form of protection. But what it's
Hmm.
done is it's disconnected us from ourselves.
Right.
And I say now for me, it's not a self-help, it's a self-trust revolution
Wow.
about learning that you have the wisdom within you to know what to do next at all times. And that I did that. I listened and I kept listening, even when it was crazy, even when I was scared. And
Yeah.
my life is evidence that no, that voice knows best, even if it doesn't make logical sense in that moment.
Why? Where does it go?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, I know you just kind of said like this external, but and fear, and you talk about this in the book because you do go kind of in a linear, like a life, like
Yes.
what happens at different places in our lives. And you even just said, even before we're even conscious of or have memories, these our body is processing and conditioned, and and so what like. When we lose that, how do we lose that? I guess this is why you wrote this book, probably to come back to it. But like, what, why, where does this go? Where does this voice go? Or we just stop listening to it because we don't think that our voice matters or
Yeah.
is worthy?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a good question. We are all born in total alignment to our higher self, the voice that is full of wisdom and dignity.
Hmm.
That is the truth of our essence. We're born into that truth. However, we need belonging to survive. We need
Mm,
others to see us, to give us attention, literally to care for us so that we can survive. And so, from a very early age, in the book, I say for me, it was around 5. You start to just pick up on, oh, when I do this thing, I get more attention from my older sister. But when I do that thing, she ignores me. When I do this thing, mom smiles. But when I do that thing, mom's annoyed. And
mhm,
so we start to define our value in relationship to others.
mhm,
And what we do is we make a trade-off. We kind of say to higher self, see you later. Being with you is not enough, right? Because I
mhm,
need the belonging. I'm a human being. I need to follow the truth of others. I need to follow what I'm seeing that they need from me. And in doing that trade off, we also begin to build our identity around the stories we create
mhm,
about the way that they're seeing us. So, I always say people have one of two core wounds. I'm not enough or I'm too much.
mhm.
That's
You're so
one of the
right.
first stories we create as a child to try to make sense of why mom did the thing or dad did that or this caretaker did that thing is it's because of me. That's the only way we can understand the world.
Right.
So we build these stories about ourselves that are limited beliefs. They are contracted beliefs about who we are. And then the world, media, brands, whatever you interact with, further convinces us of that story. If you buy this thing, you'll be more
Better.
beautiful. If you watch the news, it's all bad news, which is not true. There's good news happening too, but we're
Such a good
further,
point.
yeah, there's all kinds
But
of news
you wouldn't know
happening.
it, but yes.
Yeah,
Right.
because we've been trained that fear is intelligence. Fear is vigilance. So that
Right.
limited voice that comes from fear
Right.
is being taught that I'm the one that's right. And that's why we don't listen.
It's funny you talk about this in your book. I mean, it's not funny, but it is
Yeah.
interesting this point of fear because in a weird way, we have this like intuition. I'm not going to articulate this like you at all, but this intuition that is our sort of higher knowing self voice. And then there's this fear that is there to protect us
Yes.
in a way. And how do those two, how can, I guess in a way I'm saying it right now because your fear is also part of your intuition, probably, right?
Your fear is part of your human experience.
Human experience.
It is
Okay.
part of your ego. Um, what
Yes.
you hear in modern day spirituality is about the death of the ego. I actually believe you need your ego to survive because your ego is what identifies you. It's what separates you from others. That's what our ego is here for. But fear is this illusion that we live
Mm,
with
mm,
that comes from the pain and suffering that is a natural part of being a human being in a human body. Your
interesting.
intuition is the limitless part of you. It's
Mm,
the part of you that's connected to a greater consciousness, a collective consciousness that we're all tapped into at all times. And the fear convinces us that we are this limited identity. Whereas
mm,
the intuition is saying, no, you're much bigger than all of that. And what's important is that we learn how to be in the dance between both selves because you are both. I don't
right.
believe in any kind of message that says love and light healing, you're a spiritual divine entity, all of your human experiences you need to feel shame over. Like
Right.
that's a part of being a human being, fear, anxiety, anger, envy. The truth for me is the balance of being in the dance between this fear self who has
Yeah.
needs trying to
Yeah.
get met and this
Yeah.
divine self, this greater consciousness self that's sort of looking at you from a mountaintop saying, go this way, go that way.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
you to get closer to what you want. But the fear self is just trying to keep you alive. The intuitive self is trying to help you thrive.
Wow. That's what a great way to, such a good way to put that.
Thanks.
I do remember reading a book about fear, I don't know, probably 20 years ago now, that was like really intensely around like listen to that instinct.
Mm,
And I remember being like, I'm scared just reading this book, even though I know there's good points in here, but I'm also just like, oh my God, now I'm afraid of everything. But it's to do, it's really, you know what I mean?
yes.
Like my inner voice is always telling me, like, I don't, am I safe in this group setting? Maybe I'll leave. Am I safe in the state? Like, I don't know. So there's like, there's a way that that can be so consuming. I feel like
Yeah,
that I will find myself frozen
for
just in
sure.
like And let's like even just on a work front, like I need to address this thing, or I need to have this difficult conversation, or I know that this is what is actually best for me, but I also know in doing what I need to do that's best for me, I'm going to disappoint and let other people down. And so I would rather stall, not do anything, or come up with a way that I could maybe not have everything I need, but just enough so that those people are still happy too.
Yes.
Like
That's
it's
the
like
trade-off.
I know. And then,
And
yeah,
I
sorry.
was just going to say, you work in an industry. I happen to coach many people in
Yeah.
your industry that trades on scarcity and fear, that trades on hierarchy as a way of
Mhm.
getting things done.
Mhm.
And what I believe is that your industry, just like every other, is ripe and ready for an evolution.
Huh.
What it requires is for those that are in it to begin to hold themselves in such dignity that others respond to you in the same frequency. But it is
Cool.
when we are convinced, because the system tells us we have to be smaller to
Yeah.
survive within it,
Yeah.
that's when we are disconnected from our true magnetism.
Wow. Wow.
Right. The most
Well put.
magnetic version of you is the one that's grounded in your inherent worth and
Right.
exuding wisdom. That's the most magnetic part of you. But the systems that we're in, the industries we're in, can sometimes convince us, no, 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 be the smallest version of yourself so the
Yeah.
other person gets their way.
And also like yeah, like this constant fear and need for that, for them, for the other,
Right.
approval or whatever that might be, even if it's like not who we are or what we agree with. You do talk a lot about, and I know you talk to corporations or
Yeah.
businesses, companies, yeah,
Yeah.
about this kind of coming back to your intuition, this higher self, and how important it is for, the success of your business. But I think also kind of what you're talking about is like the alignment of it being in its highest good as well. I
Yes.
I find that is at least right now in my life, I don't know, maybe I've always been looking for this, but I think this idea of like purpose and authenticity versus just getting to the top or like doing whatever it takes. And I know you talk about this a lot, but why is it so important that in order for us to, I guess, feel fulfilled? Because I think you could look at people we would consider at the top, and they're not necessarily the happiest. They're not. It's not. They're not. That didn't solve everything for
Right.
them, if anything.
Right.
So why is it so important for us, even in our work as well, to be connected with that intuition? And that feels really hard because you are then, whether you're in a leader, well, I'll say that. Why is it so important, or how can leaders, how am I trying to, you can help me with this. What I'm trying to say is like, I feel like the work in people that come from the place of alignment, purpose, authenticity, being connected to that kind of greater consciousness source actually are the definition of successful over the person who is just at the top with all the money. And so,
Yes.
how do we, if we have it even in our personal lives, bring that to our work? And why is that like so important? Like I'm happy to hear that you exist and you are doing this for companies. So
Yeah.
why are companies coming to you and saying
Mm.
like we're missing this piece, or we need help with this?
Yeah. You
Does
know,
does any
it
of
makes
that make
such a,
sense? What I just said? I'm
yeah.
trying to like meander through what I'm trying to say here without being like
No.
these effing people. And also, no, anyway, go on.
Yeah. No, what I'm hearing you say is you're excited to see that hopefully leaders are waking up to this, but why?
Yes.
Like what's making them
What?
show up and ask for it?
Yes.
And the truth is it's usually a crisis,
Oh, right.
right? It's
Okay.
not coming from a proactive place usually. I will
Right.
say I do think that we are all evolving and we are waking up to the truth that we need to live a life, that a life well lived is fulfillment and alignment to our truth, not constantly chasing validation and constantly chasing external markers of success. That
Right.
only takes you so far until
Yeah.
your soul starts saying, like in my story, like I'm dying in here. And you can't live with a soul that's like feeling that you're not expressing the fullness of who you are. It leads to depression, anxiety, numbness,
Hmm.
addiction. Those are
Hmm.
all the things that start to happen when we're ignoring who we want to be. So
Hmm.
either it's a personal crisis like that,
Hmm.
where it feels to them like life's not feeling good anymore.
Hmm.
This, hundreds of million dollar company, and I am not in a good headspace. And your name came up, like you said about the book, right? So it'll either be a personal crisis or the company itself is in a position where employees are leaving.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, customers are starting to speak up in a negative way online. Something is happening in the business that is leading to really hard, tangible results that don't look good, don't feel good for the business. And so my way in used to be, okay, well, I'm going to write a bunch of messages and you're going to say them and people are going to believe you for a minute. I got sick of that, obviously. Now it's let's sit down together. If you want me to help you, you have to agree to coach with me, Mr. or Mrs. CEO.
Hmm.
Yes, you agree? Okay. We quickly get to what is it within you that is so coming from a fear place, coming from a place of limitation or self-doubt
Hmm.
that's causing you to lead this company in a way that is either really reactive, that is not able to actually register the needs of your
Hmm.
employees or your customers, and that's causing this kind of reaction. Because everything in life comes from a source point. And in a
Hmm.
company, it's the leader. If you see chaos in an
Sure.
organization, it's
Yeah.
coming right from the top.
Yeah.
So the work I do with leaders and then with their teams and groups is sort of, it's funny, like those clients will say, oh, the group therapist is here, the corporate therapist is here. And I'm not a therapist, but it feels that way to them because
Yeah.
we're not just talking strategic planning. We're talking like what's happening inside you right now that's causing this to go on. And also then, how much are you allowing people to come forward with the wisdom of what's within them? How much are
Mm.
people encouraged to speak up when they disagree? Disagreement is the fastest way to innovation.
Wow.
But we can't really sit with that, right? Look what's happening to DEI right now,
Hmm.
right? Like,
I
why is
mean,
that such a reaction to
yeah.
just having differing points of view? Because we all like to be comfortable and we like to be agreed with. So
Right.
what's going on in you? What little is in there saying, don't challenge me because I don't even feel strong enough about what I believe that I can't handle a challenge. So
Right.
we'll look at things from that aspect. And
Mm.
then intuition comes in just as wisdom. We can honor other people's wisdom. And the reason to answer your second question, it's important for you to go into your work that way is because one, you want to live a life well lived. You want to feel fulfilled. You can't ignore your intuition forever.
Mm.
Two, it connects you to your purpose faster. When you're connected to
Mm.
this wisdom, you're connected to the reason you're here, and that feels better for us. We need a why. We are
Yeah.
a species that needs a why to exist. And then third, you become a beacon. You become the lighthouse in that environment. And
Yeah.
watch as people magnetize towards you. Watch as you start to become a leader yourself because people want to follow you because you're living in such alignment with that.
Authenticity. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, it's really, really hard to do, but I definitely see a difference. Like my marker usually for me is like if I'm sick or I keep getting sick or have kind of unexplained things going on, it's like, oh, it's because I'm actually not living in my skin like I'm not who I am or what. Yeah, I feel like that is across the board. That's just like a much bigger conversation too about like, people having to live a different way to make other people more comfortable. And then you
Right?
see, as you were talking about, from depression, I mean, I'll throw in like autoimmune diseases and like
Yeah.
we all can relate to that on some level. If that could just be a bigger conversation around now, imagine how this person might feel if it's
Right.
affecting me on this little level of just like I'm not like imagine I'm not even in the comfortable in the skin I'm in and I don't feel like I'm safe in a world to be that way. Like
Yeah.
what that does to a person. Anyway, it's really interesting because I on the podcast I do that is just about animals, which I know we're sort of like doing.
I heard.
Yeah, we're like doing me time today just because I feel like this is so perfect for that, but I also want to do the animal one with you at some point as well to talk about that intuition. But it was so interesting how the conversations often about like pets. I just had do you know Michelle Buteau?
Yes, I
Oh yeah.
love her. Oh my God. She's my current obsession right now.
I have chills. I'm the
Yes,
same.
love
So,
her. And she actually she was on with Kara Swisher and she was saying if
uh,
I put my head down at the end of the night and I haven't listened to my intuition, then I am not sleeping well. And I was
this
like,
is somebody who I
"You're my
really
girl."
do think embodies this, though.
Yes.
Like she really does, and not
Yeah.
just for herself, for others as well. Like she's such a, as you called, like a beacon.
Yes.
I see her as a very like, she's funny, and comedians sometimes can be, seen a certain way, whether that's like sharp or crass or this or that. She has this way of, I don't know. I think she's incredible. She can create. I think it takes a certain kind of intelligence to be able to have like comedy and also
Yeah.
not hurt people in the process, or
And then
like
say something really important too. Like
like
wake you up to, oh yeah, that's true. I
I
do
told her
that.
that.
Or
I was like, you're you're doing something else, even on her show too. But one of the things
yeah.
we had talked about was this idea of her parents who had just like had this fear of dogs. They just grew up with that. She grew up in the Caribbean. It was part of like their life. I think her mom had maybe been bit at one point by a dog, and how that over time, when Michelle, who was just so drawn to dogs, had this thing. I'm only telling this story because it's about fearing the things we don't know.
Yeah.
That now her mom like has two dogs and cooks the dogs.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like she was very upset that Michelle got a dog at one point, and then like went to visit Michelle, and then had, within a week was having conversations with the dogs. And
Uh-huh.
then when she went home was like, can I please talk to the dogs on the phone?
That
Anyway,
is my Persian mom to a T. She literally was like, don't get this dog. And now she's got this little dog that literally she cooks every meal for. I get a
yeah,
little jealous sometimes. I'm like, stop feeding him all the time.
yeah, it's quite the life. But it was also, it led into this whole conversation about just like fearing the things that we don't know.
Yeah.
And sadly, that is like, I do feel like where so much it just comes from that thing that we were just talking about. Anyway,
Well, and we also are being encouraged to fear what we don't understand
of
because
course,
it's such a beautiful distraction what others are doing.
right.
Is to be
Ex-
afraid of something that's different than you. It's the oldest trick in the authoritarian playbook is
Wow.
anytime you want to accumulate power, people will be most likely to listen to you if they're in fear.
Wow. So there.
So
So,
there.
okay.
So stop
So,
being, let's reclaim the trust so we don't have to be
and the
a pawn
curiosity.
and the
And
curiosity.
openness. That's the other
Yeah.
thing too. Like even listening to you talk, it's just like, well, what if we were open? What if we were curious
Yeah.
instead of immediately afraid? Just see how that felt. Anyway, when did you decide to write the book? Because it is kind of a step by step. It's like a bit of like you're giving a framework
Hmm.
for how we can come back to that intuition, that voice, lead a more purposeful, authentic, healthy, happy life that obviously you explain as well as this like kind of thrive, expansive instead of small and like limiting. When were you like, oh, I want to write this book? What brought that? What inspired you to do that?
I always knew I was going to write a book. I always felt that I had something to say that was about others, not just
Mhm.
about me. And then I would be doing these sessions with people and they'd be like, is there anything I can read? And so I'd start, telling them books that I read and, Elizabeth Lesser, Broken Open, one of my favorite books
Mm.
about going through change.
Hmm.
Byron Katie, all these people. And then I was like, wait a minute. I have lived the roadmap and I am teaching the method. And so what started happening is there was a wait list building to work with me. I'm super grateful for that. And I started to feel like, wait a minute, I've got to put this in the hands of everybody. You can't be waiting till I have an hour to spend with you when I know
Mm.
that this is life changing. I know because I lived it, I have to put it down. And as I started to have that thought, I did an Instagram live with my friend Alok, And I got this random message from Random House. I didn't end up writing the book with Random House. It's with HarperCollins. And this editor was just like, I saw you with a look. I was wondering if you would be interested in submitting a book proposal. And so that started the process of just putting finding the agent, putting the book proposal on paper, and then realizing it's, better somewhere else. And so,
Hmm.
it went from there. And yeah, it took me about 2 years to actually publish it, but it's been truly a labor of love. And it's been really cool to get the DMs on Instagram from people who are
Mhm.
like, this book just showed up out of nowhere when I needed it the most. My mentor, who the book is
Mm.
dedicated to, Rhea, told me once, she's like, this book is alchemy. It's magic. It's going to just show up to people in the moment of their lives where they need it the most.
Mhm. I
And
have chills. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's what I keep hearing. And you said that too. It's like, it just shows up when you need it.
It really has. Like
Yeah.
somebody recommended it to me. It was a friend of mine who she's like an interior designer, and we were just randomly having a conversation, and she was like, "Have you heard of this book?" And I'm like, "That's first off." And then like Noea, do you know Noea? She's like the booker who kind of like
Oh,
put
yeah.
us together. But
Yeah.
she was like, I was like, this is so weird. Because she recommended, she like brought you up. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
so weird that I
Oh
like
my God. I
literally
love synchronicity so much. It's like the universe
so
just giving you a little wink.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's also the timing of it too, just because I feel in my own, it's part of the reason I make this podcast that is about
Yes.
me time, just because I feel, uh, I don't know if it's just like this is something I have to look at with myself a lot is around this why I do feel like when I'm alone, I can either hear myself or reconnect with myself a bit easier. I
Yeah.
know when I haven't had a lot of alone time, but I think what I'm also looking at is like, how do I take that presence and that voice awareness, like I can hear myself better, I can like that, and into the world, because that is where I tend to lose it, right? So it's like, you know,
I do. And I don't want to say too much about you or what I'm getting, but
no.
I will say that what is clear to me is that you can sense how other people feel
Hmm.
and that you have probably prioritized that throughout
Oh
your life,
yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
That is my work. That is my work. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when that's your strategy, your survival strategy,
Hmm.
what happens is you learn to not only prioritize what other people are feeling, but then really busy yourself with fixing how they feel and shaping
Oh.
yourself in a way that will make them more comfortable or more seen or feel whatever, what I'm sensing about you is like we all walk around with these little holes in ourselves. You
Hmm.
can see the hole that the person
Hmm.
has and
Hmm.
you know quickly how to fill it.
Hmm.
And so you're so busy with that that it's really hard to hear your higher self
Hmm.
because the noise of what the other person or people need and how you can easily fill it for them has just always superseded your own
Yeah. It's all
intuitive wisdom.
consuming.
And
Hmm.
then when you're alone, it's easier because you don't have that energy around you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you're good. I'm like, okay, bullseye. But all right. So that's one of the reasons too. I'm in the process. I do think I'm getting better, but I'm needing and I'm hearing and like when this book shows up or things that are like, oh, of course this is showing up right now because this is actually what I'm trying to like reconnect with, even if I can't articulate it perfectly, is this like
Yeah.
the authentic, even in work, like I want the work I'm doing or whatever, how I'm spending my time in general, just to feel more purposeful,
Right.
meaningful, authentic, all that. So with your book, all right. So if we had to say, obviously this is it's a free, it's amazing. Get her book. It's a, it's a framework, step by step. I don't know how would you even just like describe?
Yeah. It's written in three parts.
Yeah.
It's written to you, the reader.
Hmm.
I literally write, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you to remind you of your little self. And so the three parts are one, the disconnection.
Hmm.
You were born whole. You came in as your higher self. What happened? Why'd you disconnect? What was the trade-off? And in that trade-off, what stories did you start to create about yourself that have stayed with you your whole life that you have then mistaken as your identity? And so in that first part, we're really excavating. You're going to walk away clear. These are the stories. I know them and I know where they came from. And I lovingly can see how they're trying to protect me. We also explore how the world around you further underscores those stories. Like I talked about all the systems that do that. And then in the second part, I introduce you to your higher self.
Hmm.
And because I'm a coach and a guide, every chapter has an exercise because I really want you to be able to do the work. When you're meeting your higher self, I'm helping you identify what does it feel like in your body, your intuition.
Yeah.
What's it feel like in your emotion? What's it like in your energy? What's an example in the past? Our brains need evidence to believe things are true.
Hmm.
So I give you evidence
Hmm.
so that your brain is like, oh, okay, this is true. And then the last part of the book is about how to set and forget your frequency at higher self. And it's about how do you navigate relationships when you've shifted into this higher consciousness place and those around you aren't there yet. How do what do boundaries actually look like in that kind of, what do you do about work opportunities? How do you live your life in a way that is in total alignment with your dignity and your intuition as your guide instead of fear? And then
Hmm.
it ends on just, we are all beings of love. That is the whole reason you're here. How do we bring you back to this place of love with yourself and what you can exude out into the world?
So would be your like message or takeaway from the book is that coming back to your authentic self and then that place of love and
Yeah,
then hopefully creating more of that in in
yeah.
this crazy. Yeah.
Love is the only true energy. Everything else is a distortion, a manipulation, an illusion.
Mm.
Love is the only thing that's true. We are here because of it,
Hmm.
literally, and we make change because of it. Everything else is a distortion. And I want
It's
to just,
everything.
yeah, I want
Love
to
that.
remind you of that and remind you that that's what you are inherently.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Can we talk about your me time a little bit?
sure.
How you spend your me time? Yeah, so I'd sort of define it as it's all over the place, but the thing that like people do to come back to themselves when they feel they're like a little offline.
Yeah,
Honestly, I've had people say I have a glass of whiskey and a cigarette, to the most extravagant, I travel by myself or I go to a spa or like
yeah,
whatever. So it can be also as simple as like going out in the yard and looking at the sun for 5 minutes. But
yeah.
what would that be for you if you were like, all right,
I'm laughing because I'm an 80s latchkey kid. So the
oh,
most like joyous me time is when I find Three's Company and I can put it on the TV
ah,
and no, or Golden Girls, or
oh
Golden
yeah, that's
Girls,
good too. Oh my
or Good
God.
Times. If it's one
Okay.
of those three things and
Mm-hmm.
I can have it on the TV and no one's around me,
Oh,
that to me just feels so pure, like pure joy. And then,
oh, wow.
yeah, that's my me
From the
time.
80s. I mean, I get it. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm of that too. So I totally relate to the
yeah,
comfort of those theme songs and whatever that is. That's like, I love that.
yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
Or
Yeah.
I love the sun, so I'll just literally come sit outside and just like sit there in the sun, close my eyes, listen to the birds, listen to the wind, just have a minute. For me, nature is the most connective tool to
Yeah.
the divine. And so
Yeah.
that's how I connect is just to be in nature, even if it's for a minute. Like I literally will just if take a minute in between sessions and go do it and come back.
Oh, that's so good. You
Yeah.
know what I did the other day? It's funny you said that because I was like, I live in a high rise, so I'm not on the ground.
Yeah.
And I had this thing where I was like, I had an audition for something. I was like, I'm the same. I need to connect with nature, even if it's just a little bit. And I like went to this neighborhood that I really love. And I just like took my shoes off and I was walking my dog and I put my feet in the grass.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, I forgot how good this feels. To the point where I was like, I think I might need to move. But just
Yeah.
that feeling of like, of even if it's just for a moment to sort of connect with the outside or something as pure as the earth itself.
That's your
Um,
intuitive wisdom. Touching ground,
mm,
touching
mhm.
ground is the most literally grounding thing we can do because the earth is holding us down. It's nourishing us. And
Isn't
when
that
we make
crazy?
connection to it, it reminds our body, our psyche, our spirit that we are grounded to something. We're not floating out there in space. We are grounded to the, I mean we are, but we are grounded to the earth that is
Yeah.
floating out there in space. Yeah.
Oh wow. I will think of that differently next time. As you just said, that's my intuitive wisdom saying, because I will tell you, part of me was like, this feels a little crazy, and I hope no one actually sees me. But
Yep.
I also, the second I did it, it was like I mean, I know this sounds a little nuts, but it was like a euphoric feeling
Yeah.
of literally like, oh, that is all I needed. I can breathe, I feel relaxed, I feel refueled, and it was literally a minute that
Yeah.
I was just sitting there. Anyway, it was
Yeah.
yeah.
Why is that
Oh,
more nuts than any of the other
I
things that
know.
we do? It's
No.
really, it's because it's truly, it's like what's acceptable and not. But that's the thing about your intuition too, is like part of the reason we don't listen is because we're afraid of what it's going to look like. The other reason we
Mm,
don't listen is because we're afraid we have to do something about it right away. So
that is
if that,
so. Do you know this guy Stefan Speaks? Well,
no,
it's called Stefan Speaks. He calls himself that. He was on,
yeah,
I want to say it was Jay Shetty's podcast the other day.
yeah,
Great, just relationship guy, just like in general. And he was saying that like one of our greatest fears and one of the breaking points in relationships or where we get to is exactly what you're talking about. This like
yeah,
fear of actually saying not only what we want, but who we actually are. And
yeah,
like, and I guess you first have to kind of know that, which is bringing us back to like the intuition or whatever. But it's interesting what you just said. It's almost like like our intuition might tell us things and we're going to be like, but if you listen and were to live, like even just with the, I'm not gonna walk over there and put my feet in the
right,
grass in somebody's neighborhood, like that's crazy. And then it was like, I don't care. This is
yeah,
so good. It
yeah.
was weird though. It was like a weird moment where I was like, I have to do this right now. Like
I
a,
really applaud you. I'm very proud of you. I know we
okay,
just met,
thank
but
you.
I'm very proud of you, Maggie.
I hate that, and I don't want you to feel that this is like turned into a session because
No,
honestly, I'm like,
not
I
at
could
all.
talk to you all day, and I love hearing this. But I also, it's such a good point. Even with my therapist, it's one of the things the two words we are working with right now are like trust and curiosity
Yeah,
instead of like shame and blame or
yeah, of
judgment because mine is always to myself, and
course.
that's what I work on right the most. And instead of it just saying like, okay, I'm curious about I'm doing this thing that I is a pattern or repeat of something. And instead of looking at it as like, why are we doing this, Maggie? I'm going to look at it like, okay, this is interesting.
Right.
Is this
Without judgment.
what we really want? Is this
Yeah,
how we're feeling? If it is, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
totally.
Anyway, sorry. I am turning this into a session.
I love it.
Okay. So, something else I ask everybody on a me time as well is like three things, and they don't have to be like in the whole lifetime, but just three things in this moment that you absolutely cannot live without. And obviously, your family, pets, and all of that. We're not.
Oh, that goes to the
That's a
side.
given. That's a given.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more like if it's a product or a thing that you've just discovered or whatever, they're just like giddy about.
Wow. You know what's so
Or that
funny?
you
This
love.
morning I was putting my face cream on. Dieux
Mm-hmm.
face cream is some
Mm-hmm.
of the best, most luxurious, like, and it's at this price point that it just is like, wow, how are they selling it at this level? Like cheap, not
Really?
cheap, but like, yeah, it's not hugely expensive. Anyway,
Okay.
that face cream I'm living for right now.
Love.
The second is, wow, this is a really good question because I
I
do
should have
always go to
probably
my
asked
kids.
before.
No,
Yeah.
it's fine that
No,
I
this is
keep
about you.
out.
This is you. This is just like your person. Because I know
Yeah.
most people, like I would be like my dog, my number
Yeah,
one.
totally.
But when you remove those couple of things, it's like, what about just you?
Yeah, no, I love that. My husband and I got into a fight over this. I recently started using a satin pillowcase, which I should have learned from my friends of color with hair like mine before. They've told me forever. 'Cause I
Really?
have frizzy, my hair can get frizzy. And my husband tried to steal it last night. I was like, no, sir, you can get your own.
Why
It's
did you want your
because
satin
it's
pillow?
softer.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
And my
All right.
hair, I
Get
wake
your
up, my
own
hair's not
satin
a mess.
pillow.
Yeah, exactly. And
I've wondered about that too. I've wondered about like, because people also say it's good for wrinkles because your face is not as it's not as rough or like whatever. And I've not tried it yet, but
yeah,
interesting. Maybe I will
yeah.
now. Yeah.
It's interesting I have to mention it because I hold it all the time, but this is a labradorite crystal that was given to me. Do you see how it's like glowing?
Oh my God. That's
So I
beautiful.
hold this in sessions. It's just a habit I have. And the cool thing about this is like when the Native Americans saw it, they thought it had like the universe in it because it's glowing from within. So it's a stone that's supposed to connect to intuition. I only found that out after I just kept holding it and playing with it, is that
Because
it's
your
literally an
intuition,
intuition stone. So I guess I'm
literally.
going to say that's my third one because I'm always hanging on to it.
I love that. I have a
Yeah.
couple that are I have them, I hold them. One is like straight copper because it's really heavy and I need to
Yeah.
feel the weight in my hand. And that
Yeah.
also is very grounding. It's just a grounding thing for me to sort of bring me back to earth. But oh my God, I love this. What's it called again? Labradorite?
Labradorite.
Labradorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah.
Super cool.
The-
Anything else you want to share, either about your me time or about your book, or to anybody listening around this idea of reconnecting with ourselves, or anything else you want to add into our conversation today that I didn't ask or touch on or anything?
You asked such amazing questions.
Oh
You were
God,
made
did
for
I?
this. Yes, you
Oh,
did. You asked really great questions. I love when the conversation can go deep and wide at the same time, and you
oh,
definitely did that. No, I mean, I think my reminder is just that if any part of this conversation got that little voice inside you stirring, awesome. That's the whole point. Listen to it. That's the voice that knows what's best for you above all else. Don't let anyone else convince you you don't have the answers within. They're always within you.
incredible. My God, what a lesson. Also, this book, get this book. I might, like, separate from this podcast, if people want to reach out to you, whether they're company or individually, what is
Yeah.
the best way to do that?
That's a great question. So my website is moryfontanez.com and I do a lot of speaking and workshops and you can book me there. I'm on Instagram at Mory Fontanez, so just shoot me a DM and Maggie, I'll give you my info and we can stay connected after that.
I
Yeah.
would love that. I
Yeah.
just love everything that you're about, everything that you have to say, and the way you say it, it's all just, I feel you're very easy to connect with. And I think that it's because of also what you're talking about, but it's also you and like your whole story, the whole story of like your life. And thank you for sharing that, by the way, in the book, just giving like these backstory. I think it's really helpful for people to hear. I think a lot of times in books and when we're hearing from people, we that is lost.
Yeah.
It's so connective immediately when you start reading the book and you hear what you've been through, what your family has been through, what you and where you are and where you all are and everything else. Anyway, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful story in and of itself. But then the
Thank
fact
you.
that you're sharing it and changing the world with it is makes us all very grateful. Yeah.
Oh, well, that means a lot to me. Thank you for
Yeah,
saying that.
for sure. Thank you so much. And yes, we're gonna connect after this. I was like, how does one book a session with
Yeah,
you? I mean, tell the listeners, but
I'll
also
tell
for
you.
me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will let you know. I don't do a lot of one-on-one
Okay.
sessions, but yes, I if you DM me on Instagram, I always find a way to get you in there. Not that my
Okay.
team loves that because they're like, how are you going to see 100 people in a month? But I make it happen. So shoot me a
Okay.
DM at Mory Fontanez, and yeah, you and I will
Okay.
connect.
Oh, bud. I thought my dog was gonna come in and say hi.
The
Okay,
only thing
great.
I noticed is we didn't say the title of the book, but I'm assuming
Oh
you're
my
gonna.
God, are you
Yeah.
serious? The book is called Higher Self.
Yes.
And oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about
Let's
it. It's
start with
called.
that. Again, I am
Yeah.
gonna bring him. He did come in. He has
Oh my gosh.
He's incredibly intuitive as well. And sometimes I will find him, like with certain people I talk to, he will want to come be a part of the conversation. So I'm
Oh,
not
what's his
surprised at
name?
all. Linus.
Linus?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like Linus and
Linus.
Lucy.
I
Yes.
love that. Oh, he's so sweet. How old is he?
He's a little over 3 and the
Oh, what a
greatest. I always just say
sweetheart.
Linus is the greatest. He really is. And we'll talk more about that too. But
Yeah.
so it's higher self. And I know it's reclaiming your intuition or
Higher self, reclaiming the power of your
the
intuition.
power. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, reclaiming the power of your intuition.
Yes.
Higher self, get this book. It's incredible. And we will talk soon. I'm going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Me Time. I am sure all of you feel the same way about Mory as I do now. And go get her book. It is really something. And as you can hear, she is really something. And follow her. And please follow us on our Instagram, Me Time with Maggie Lawson. And we will see you soon.